right, we're ready.
My Unity and Diversity speech is titled I Have a Dream, and it's on the book called The Dream Keepers by Gloria Ladson-Billings. Gloria Ladson-Billings is the Kellner Family Chair in Urban Education. She is also a professor of curriculum and instruction. She was also involved in the educational policy standards at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Along with doing all of that, she's also won several awards, including the Spencer Postdoctoral Fellowship, the George and Louise Spindler Award, the Palmer O. Johnson Outstanding Research Award, along with many more. The book, The Dream Keepers, was inspired by Gloria's research on the study of successful teachers and successful teachers of African American students. It focuses on 8 teachers and the things that they did in their classrooms to make them outstanding, as well as what they did to make the students successful. The inspiration for Dream Keepers was when she was researching the different practices of teachers who were successful. And she also branched out a little bit, and she was trying to figure out what made these teachers successful, what made other teachers unsuccessful with teaching African American students. Because she had all these statistics in the book, and it was basically saying that the majority of the African American kids in the class were falling behind for some reason, and she didn't know if it was due to racism, their race, or if they're just genetically born with different learning abilities. So she kind of investigated the critical race theory and how it's applied to education. That theory mainly focuses on racism and different points of view on that subject. So for Gloria Ladson-Billings, she chose these 8 teachers, but how were they chosen? She went through a number of different steps. The first step is she actually went into the district that she wanted to do this study in, and she talked to the parents. She got involved, and she said, who would you recommend? Who is wonderful with your student, and who would you want to participate in the study? So then she took a list of all those names, went to the principal of the various schools, asked the principal who had the best test scores, who had the best class attendance and class participation, and they recommended a list. And then she compared the 2 lists, and anyone who appeared on both lists was chosen. Originally there were 9 people chosen, but only 8 decided to participate in the study, and out of those there were 5 African American teachers and 3 Caucasian teachers. All the teachers in this study show different examples of the National Board of Professional Teaching Standards, but here are a few of the ones that were really demonstrated throughout the book. So the white ones are the highlighted ones for you. The teachers in the book definitely exhibited fairness, equality, and diversity in their classrooms. They used inclusive learning environments to help support their students. They helped their students to learn how to read, write, and speak, using different language, and not just saying that a formal language is acceptable over an informal, casual language. And then finally, she used formal and informal assessments to kind of gauge how much students have learned over the semester or term that you were in the class. So my first teacher that I want to focus on is Miss Pauline Dupree. She's an African American woman, and she attends the African American Baptist Church, where most of the children and parents in the district attend. She has described herself as a no-nonsense, no-frills teacher, and she is always impeccably dressed. She always has a very clean classroom, and everything has an order and a place to it. And a little bit about Miss Dupree. She's one of those teachers that won't just kind of pass you along because you're doing okay. If you deserve an A, you'll receive an A. If you deserve a C or a D, you will get that grade. But she tries to encourage her students in all aspects, not just school. So one thing that she does really well is if she has a student who scored the winning touchdown at a football game, or was the star in the theater program, or did something really amazing in their church, she has the sports team coaches, the drama teachers, the ministers, parents come in and speak about why those kids were excellent. So this little practice encourages her students to be successful in all aspects of their life, not just in the classroom. She also loves her work very much, and she goes as far to say that her students are some of the most important people she's ever met. People she's ever met. Here's just a little quote from her, and it says, "Every weekday morning when I wake up, I know I'm on my way to teach some of the most important people in the world. Do you know why you're the most important people in the world? Because you represent the future. How you turn out will have consequences for us all. What you decide to do with your lives can help this community and the world a better place, and I hope a few of you will seriously consider teaching, and I bet quite a few of you would make excellent teachers. So to go along with that, some of her teaching methods that are described in the book are as follows. So she demonstrates cooperative learning. Cooperative learning is basically a strategy where she breaks her classroom into teams, and in those teams there are a different level of ability in them. And then those teams usually do problem-solving activities, they act out different scenarios, and they do other learning activities. And so this kind of helps them to get more involved with the project rather than just reading and taking notes. So in the book, it was demonstrated she was giving a lesson on Rosa Parks. And she starts the lesson and she says, yes, Rosa Parks was a seamstress, she was on her feet all the time, but she was also an activist. And she goes to explain how an activist is somebody who goes out and doesn't wait for something to be done, she goes out and does it herself, or himself. And so then she has her kids write down people they think are kind of different activists. And she goes on to explain that activists can't just go out and do something. You have to be well educated on the subject, you have to have a plan, you can't just act rashly. And then the quote was, you can't do something without thinking about your actions first, and you can't do very much by yourself. Everyone needs help, and that's how we make things happen, by working together. She kind of ties this all in, showing how Rosa Parks is only one person, but she did make somewhat of a difference, but she didn't end the whole civil rights movement herself. It was her, along with Dr. Martin Luther King, along with many other people together who did this, and that's kind of what she tried to explain to her students. Another tool that she uses is study buddies, and it's really just another way for students to have accountability. She pairs two students up in the classroom. For the entire semester, they're responsible for each other. If my study buddy forgot their work for the day, Ms. Dupree would probably get upset with me for making sure that for why they didn't have it. And they kind of read over each other's papers and they keep each other accountable, and it gives them responsibility for not just themselves but other people. She says it's just another level of learning because those that are helping others are really helping themselves. And this just really shows you care about your students enough for them to help them succeed in all areas of their life, much like Ms. Dupree would do for any of her students. To kind of wrap up about her, this is her personality in a nutshell. She said, I finally told my principal that I did not use the mandated texts. And she didn't say anything because she knew the kind of results I was getting, and she knew the kind of results my colleagues were getting. I'm responsible for the classroom, and I've worked long enough to know what will work and what doesn't. I'm not going to blatantly tell a principal what I'm not going to do. I'm just going to do what I need to do in order for my students to achieve. My second teacher is Ms. Peggy Valentine. She's also an African-American woman in her mid-40s. She considers herself strict, but she also has a flair for the dramatic. She says that she identifies with her students in a different way because she's from a single-parent household, and that's what a lot of her students are from as well. Personally, for myself, I grew up in a single-parent household, and it didn't make me a bad student or anything like that, but definitely when my parents got a divorce, it made it harder on me to keep up with my schoolwork. And so my teachers were really there as a support system to help move you along, because you never know what your students are going to be going through, and this is demonstrated by Ms. Peggy Valentine. Through, and this is demonstrated by Ms. Peggy Valentine. Some of her teaching methods. She uses lessons as games. So the example in the book that I absolutely loved and I would probably use in my own classroom is she was giving a lesson on adjectives, and it was right on Halloween, and she chose the word witch. And she told her students to spout out adjectives to describe witch. Some of them said old witch, mean witch, black witch, but they weren't really exciting adjectives. So suddenly she grasps her chest, her eyes roll back in her head, and she says, save me, I need some fabulous adjectives to help me. So then it becomes a game about trying to revive their teacher. So they start shouting out these like compound adjectives of green-faced witch, hook-nosed witch, evil witch. And it made just a boring lesson and turns it into a game that those students probably won't forget. And in my own classroom, being an English teacher, I feel like that would really be a fun way to kind of work on grammar, because grammar is not fun. And it's not a way that students really get involved. So that can make it definitely more fun. The second way is student as a teacher. And this is pretty self-explanatory. The students stand up and they teach subjects, either math, language arts, student culture, like what kids are wearing, what's going on in the schools, and song lyrics, etc. And personally, from experience, I know if I have to teach about something, I know all aspects about it. And if I'm just sitting there being lectured at, taking notes, I kind of zone in and out, I lose stuff. But if I have to teach, I know everything about it because you have to spit it back to other people. So I think that this is a great method to use in the classroom, and I think it's easy for any subject area to use. A third method that she uses is values clarification. This was used mainly in the 1970s, and it's an idea based on the premise that all students come to school with values, and it's a teacher's job to help them clarify values. They did this with a story called The Alligator River, and it's a moral dilemma, and she basically splits her class up into groups on who they believe was the worst character in the story, whether they were mean or hateful or whatever. So she splits them up into different groups, and she has different groups, and she has a discussion about it. She says, decision making is one of the most important skills and these kids can develop. They're confronting so many competing interests out there, they have to learn how to work together in the classroom and have a sense of solidarity so they can accomplish some things, but they can't just go along with anything the group says. I don't just do this as a feel-good activity. We develop a lot of speaking and writing skills as we go through these activities. I have students write out their positions on the various issues. I sometimes set up debates around the values and role-playing activities. My kids have had so many experiences that are devalued in the classroom. They often are critical in situations without the skills to make decisions in their own best interests. The classroom has got to be the kind of place that helps them deal with this in their lives now so they can have some options and choices later. Just a little bit about her. She is much like Ms. Dupree. She thinks that recognizing her students for excellence is very important. She does this in two ways, with the Weekly Excellence Program, where the students nominate a peer who's been excellent either socially or academically, but they have to back it up with proof. And then they vote in the classroom, and that student either gets homework passes, a free meal ticket somewhere, something like that. The second way is an internship program that she hosts. It's an honor to be chosen. And those people basically go and shadow the cafeteria workers, librarians, janitors, other teacher aides, to learn the value of work and to learn what work actually is and not just their idea of it. And I think both of those are great ideas. The third teacher is Miss Gertrude Winston. She is a teaching veteran of 40 years, and she joined the Peace Corps. She actually had her first contact with African Americans when she was teaching in West Africa. She describes her final years of teaching as transformative, and she believes she received much of an education from the students that she was able to give. A little bit about her: she's very bright, she's very organized, she has folders for all of her students, she's cubby, she has everything for them. Every year she hosts a quilting bee to demonstrate a communal learning approach, and basically the students, their parents, their grandparents, siblings can come in, they do this quilting activity, and they make a quilt, and at the end of it, they pick a charity or a family in need to donate it to. And this, along with this, she kind of does different reading activities, writing activities to help them to learn what they're doing. She says that she's never met a successful student. You know they're all successful at something. The problem is that school doesn't often deal with the kinds of things that they can do and will be successful at. And those tests, they're the worst things ever. They don't begin to test what the kids really know. That's why my class is a constant search for ways to be successful. And that's why we do so many projects in my class. I figure if we do enough different kinds of things, one will hit of the kind of things that kids will be successful with. Then I look for a way to link that with success with other tasks. For example, when I do my sewing unit, I link it to social studies. But a number of kids find out that they're pretty good at sewing, and I mean boys as well as girls. And because of that, I can get them interested in reading about sewing and other crafts and then writing about it. But you know that the tests don't get at this big involved process of moving from one concrete experience to the level of abstraction that the writing process represents. So to kind of wrap this up, this is a quote by William A. Ward. The mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, the great teacher inspires. The book The Dream Keepers gives several amazing examples of great teachers and different methods to use. To close my speech, I want to give you a visual example of what an outstanding teacher looks like, despite any color, gender, or age. I hope you can enjoy this excerpt from the video The Dead Poets Society. Oops.
Excellent. That's what I think of Mr. J. Evans Pritchard. Not like pipe. We're talking about poetry. How could you describe poetry like American bandstand? I like fire, I give him a 42, but I can't dance to it. I want you to rip out that page. Rip out the entire page. Here, rip it out. Rip it out! Come on, rip it out! Thank you, Mr. Dalton. Gentlemen, tell you what, I'll just tear out that page. Tear out the entire introduction. Thank you, Mr. Dalton. Armies of academics going forward, measuring poetry. No! You'll not have that here. No more, Mr. J. Evans. Now, my class, you will learn to think for yourselves again. You will learn to savor words and language. No matter what anybody tells you, words and ideas can change the world. See that look in Mr. Pitt's eye? Like 19th century literature has nothing to do with going to business school, medical school, right? Maybe. So Hopkins, you may agree with him, thinking, yes, we should simply study our Mr. Pritchard and learn our rhyme and meter and go quietly about the business of achieving other ambitions. A secret for you, good luck. Good luck! We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race. And the human race is filled with passion. Medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits necessary to sustain life. Poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for. To quote Whitman, O me, O life of the questions of these recurring, of the endless trains of the faithless, of cities filled with the foolish, what good amid these, O me, O life? Answer, that you are here, that life exists in identity, that the powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. That the powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. What will your verse be?
I wanted to leave you with that. What will your verse be as teachers? How will you be a great teacher who inspires all students, much like Miss Dupree, Miss Valentine, Miss Winston, and even John Keating from the Dead Poets Society? How can you inspire all of your students despite color, gender, or age? What will your verse be as teachers? Thank you.
Y'all know that movie? Everybody know that movie?
Oh, do I still need this?
I don't know. Somebody might need it. Everybody know Dead Poet Society? These two do? Yes? No? Courtney? No? Yes? Phil? Eaton? No, Jake? You guys know it?
Oh, no.
Okay. So the people who don't know that movie, you can probably watch all of it on YouTube or at least Netflix or something like that for free. It's a really good movie for inspiring the artistry of teaching. So, questions about the Dreamkeepers? There's her work cited.
Yeah.
What comments, positive comments, would you give to Amanda?
You knew your stuff.
She knew her stuff. It sounded like she read that whole book, didn't it?
Did you read the whole?
Couple times.
Yeah.
Do you know how many minutes you went?
I don't. I'm guessing it was like 20. I knew I was gonna go over.
I got 17 minutes and 38 seconds. Did it feel long to you guys? No. You had good delivery and pace and things. Anything else? Give her another round of applause. Now we're ready for Jake Califer. Oh yeah, please stop that.
Sorry.
I have no idea. He's not using a laptop.
Are you just going to use the regular machine?
Yeah, I was just gonna try to do that.
Yeah, just push the button that says PC down by your knee. And, that should give you podium.